Today I'll be making some measuring spoons out of various wood blanks that I have. So the first step you do is measure a little bit longer than the tubes, so that way you'll have a little bit of extra room that you can play with if you make a mistake. So once you mark them off, take them over to the bandsaw, cut each one of them to the size that you've measured, and then you want to drill a hole so that way you can insert the tubes. You can use a drill press. I prefer to go this route just because I'm not very accurate when I try to go on the drill press. I tend to move or shift or something, and then that makes it where I have to start over from scratch with a whole new blank. So I use the lathe, and you can see drill in a little bit and then it kind of bottoms out, so you have to sled forward and start over. Then I take the tubes, rough them up with sandpaper so that way they'll have a little bit more to grip. And then for me, I'm putting on a lot of super glue and then spraying some activator inside each of the blanks. And the goal here is that way it just makes it set up more quickly. I don't have to wait as long. But the key, you make sure that you get those tubes in there quickly, because if you take your time and mess around, it'll lock up and then it's a little bit trickier to get them back in there. So once you do that, I like to take off a whole lot of the excess here. It just saves me time on the lathe. So this is the only one I did. You can also sand off the edges too. So this one you can see I kind of rounded over the edge a little bit just so some extra work is not needed on the lathe. And then what I'm also doing is sanding the tips so that it gets down to the tubes. And you can see it's flush there. See the gold shine. After that, went over to the lathe, put each one on there. And I won't show the full process of each one, but a little time lapse so you can kind of see the overall process, which we weren't sure which camera angle to use, so hopefully you're not getting too nauseous from the jump cuts here. But this was the biggest of the bunch, so we decided to put the most, I guess, curves into it. So after you get it shaped, sand it down, I went to up to 320 grit. So started at 150, then 220, and 320. Once I did that, I take some of the mineral spirits with the lathe still spinning, apply it, and the goal here is just get rid of all the dust and any kind of debris or oils that I may have put in there from my hands or sanding. So after that, let it dry a little bit while it's spinning, and once it's dried out from spinning and then a little bit of a dry cloth, I went with some high friction polish on each of them. So I like to use these towels. I don't use paper towels because then it gets too tacky and lint will come off of it, which I did kind of mess up off screen. And one of the towels did, these blue shop towels did kind of get some pieces on their side to sand it and start over, but did not show you all that. But use the high friction polish and it'll get really hot. And once it starts getting hot, that's what makes it get shinier for you. So from here I just went through the next three, and again, I'm just kind of showing the shaping that I did. I'm not going through the full process of each one. Each one of them was kind of ad-libbed. Once we started going, it was a matter of just shape them and do your best to not make them look phallic, because that's pretty easy to do when you're doing any kind of handles like these. So anyway, shape them down, and then same process, just use some sandpaper. Once you get the sandpaper, then wipe them off and put the high friction polish on there. So I used my pin press to clamp them together, and it was a little trickier to get these lined up just right, and the hole that's in the back end of this press ended up getting stuck on the first one I did. So lesson learned. I went and the next few I got a piece of wood from the scrap pile, which you'll see here in a second, and that helped me from getting them all lodged in there like this one. So do as I say, not as I do. If you guys are paying attention to have one of these that you want to use yourself, definitely put something there so that it doesn't get stuck in the hole. And then the front end, this is a threaded piece that you will use to screw in the actual spoon itself. So the directions said you should be able to squeeze them in by hand, and apparently those directions are for the Hulk, because there's no way I could get it done. So I had to line them up on the pin press here, and then each of them got squeezed in there nicely. And then from there you just take the spoon itself, screw it on, and that is it. So I've time lapsed the next three. I won't bore you with the excitement of watching me put them all together. But they ended up coming out nicely, and not a bad little gift and not a bad weekend project to do. And here you can see I decided to get really close in, let you see the different grains and designs on these, which I really like them. I didn't want to do the same design for all four, and I did not want to use the same wood species for all four. So I personally like the idea of mixing them up, and you get a good idea with the light reflecting off of how that high friction polish works up. But not too bad for a day's work. And here is a photo of each one, and then this is what they all look like when you get them on the ring. So, thanks for watching.